All right. Test one, two. I believe we are live. Hello, everybody. It's been a bit. I'm back, and we've got quite the subject to tackle today, don't we? I hope everybody's well wherever you find yourself. Welcome to the stream. I hope to see you guys lively in the chat today. I want to hear both pro and con to the debate at hand. What is the fate of Canada? Where have we been? How did we get here? And where the hell are we going? Are we going to remain an alleged sovereign nation? Are we even that right now? Have we ever been that? Or are we going to do some constitutional reform, clean out the problems, the incompetence, the corruption, maybe reform our constitution so that it has a little more teeth? Because it seems like our present constitution, they don't even call it that, they call it a Charter of Rights, doesn't seem to have the teeth that we all hoped it would in terms of preserving individual rights and freedoms. So are we going to do the reform? Are we going to get our act together as a country? Are we going to find some level of unity on some really core issues? Are we going to be able to defend our borders, defend our country from some of the existential threats that I think all the Western countries are facing right now? Are we going to be able to repair our economy by simply voting in the Conservatives? Or are we going to wait 50 years for the PPC to get in? Do we have that kind of time? I'm trying to think of all the options we have. Are we going to be absorbed into the United States as a 51st state, as Trump started off with just sort of trolling Trudeau about, but now seems rather serious about the matter? Now, whether he's using this as some sort of negotiation tactic or something to get people in Canada talking about our situation, whether he's serious, I want to hear all your comments. What do you think? I am doing this show because I put out a X post, and I will read it for you in a second here. And it's kind of going around, and I'm getting lots of reactions to it. And so I figured we'd go through some of the comments and some of the comments for this stream today. And I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what you're thinking. And I'll be reading out the best trolls, the best againsts, and the best pros. So give me your good chats. Give me your good comments. I'm live right now on X, Rumble, Twitch, the Foxhole. How's it going, guys? Been a while. Hope you're well. And let me just see here. We've got a few chats already. Fireman 9702 on Rumble. Hey, Dave. Hey, what's going on? Somebody is saying naturally happy says, I have a strong feeling the deal is already done. Trump doesn't say random things that don't manifest. I'm here for it. Well, this is the sentiment of a lot of people, but my wife brought up a good point right before I came on the air. And I also want to address this because she's a great person for me to sometimes play devil's advocate, test out my resolve, see how I would argue these points. She has her ear to the ground in sort of the mom community here in Canada. And she's like, there's still a significant amount of Canadians that are absolutely, completely against America in every way. Like, they have been raised to stare down their nose at Americans, to despise Americans. And so she's like, even though there's been a lot of Canadians waking up to the political corruption and the geopolitical issue, that I think that's the bigger meta subject we have to tackle if we're going to start talking about this. This is way bigger than just Canada and the US, okay? So a lot of people are against that. And definitely a lot of Canadians are still very anti-Trump. They think he's literally Hitler still. And so she's saying, well, how are we going to get around that? If, let's just say, what if the vast majority of Canadians don't want this? even though I know I see it in the chats. Hey, I love it. The idea, right? This would be better. And we'll get into my take on it. Cause I'm at a point where I'm like, what are the options? Right. And I'll get into my thought on where I've come to after experiencing my entire life, born and raised in this country, being very politically aware, not active, but just aware. Um, and we'll get into how I've been comparing a lot of notes between the way the Canadian system was set up, what it is today versus say maybe in the 70s and 80s, and comparing that to America, and then realizing that the America that's hated the most by the world is the America that was run by deep state globalist totalitarians that were literally puppets working on behalf of people that have no allegiance to America and actually hate it and are trying to destroy it. And that's right from their own mouths. That's not a hidden conspiracy. There's been America has had a target on its back since its inception, as has freedom in general when it comes to the people that are trying to bring all of these nations make all the nations of the world a state in the new global empire run by an unelected bureaucracy. So I'm getting my thing, and guys, I may jump around a little bit. This is all very off the cuff. And then I want to get to your comments and just kick it off here. But it's, we have to think in proper context about this. This is a kind of a minefield. You got to think around a lot of things. It's going to require some active thinking about a lot of points. That's all I can really say for sure. It's up to everybody that's going to participate in this conversation to really turn this on and really think, okay, am I arguing from a place of nostalgia about an old Canada that doesn't exist anymore? Am I arguing with all of the present factors that are at play in mind when I'm making arguments? Are we taking all the pieces of the puzzle and putting them together? Or are we just sort of like latching on to random bits and trying to hold on to some kind of a thing that maybe doesn't even exist? Are we projecting our idealism about what Canada could be versus what it is and where it's going and the reality of the situation? Like, these are things we got to really think through. And I'm thinking through it, okay, as deeply as I can. And I know a lot of people are stark raving mad at me. I've even been branded a traitor, apparently. You should see how many comments people calling me a traitor for even entertaining the idea that I think we should maybe take up, if this actually is real and the things Trump is doing are real and they come to fruition, which many of them are coming to fruition right now. If you look at all these executive orders, you see the actual tangible things happening to fulfill those executive orders, to restore the American Republic and bring it back to constitutional framework. And so the question stands that my wife posed to me, and I believe some people in the comments threw this at me as well. I would like you to know your thoughts, guys. What if the vast majority of Canadians, which are now made up of a lot of sudden mass immigration, just so you know, okay, and not all of those immigrants are against this idea either, and showed up to Canada and realized, oh shit, I better move back because I can't afford to live in this country, even if I'm getting free handouts, right? Like, so we don't want to just cast a general brush here, but the fact of the matter is our demographics have changed significantly within 10 years, and there is no real cohesion in the country anymore. The Liberal Party has been in power for what, like a decade now? We can't seem to get rid of them. And then even when you get conservatives in, they're basically just liberal lights. Like, they're not really taking the government through the ringer the way Trump is to try to audit it and forensically like build a department of government efficiency and oversight and change. Like, these moves that are coming in, this is a totally different presidency than the first time around. I hope everybody realizes that after the first week. And I think there's reasons for that. But I keep going off here. What do we do if the vast majority of Canadians don't want this? Is it going to be a takeover by force? Because there's a lot of Canadians that do want this. Is it going to be divided by provinces? See, the problem I've seen in Canada on a political level, and I've been at this a while. I've spoken to all the people here that are fighting back. I went through the sovereign movement thing. I went through the PPC thing. I went through the whole idea that Canada was never a sovereign country, and all we got to do is rebuild our constitution. It'll make everything better. I've seen guys spend 50 plus years of their lives trying to drill basic things into the heads of the average Canadian about the truth, about the fact that we're basically a state of the British Empire. And that's not a good thing, right? It was better than being in a lot of other countries, but look at where we are as evidence that that wasn't something that necessarily worked out. And so we're basically talking reform or annexation. Like that's where it's at. And I'm just wondering if we have the political will, given everything I've experienced and all the sovereign bro, all the people that were trying to fight for like true freedom and prosperity and getting rid of the issues in Canada. I'm talking the issues right in the framework of the country. Like the fact that we're going to have a serious chat about how many of the actual values that we were raised with in Canada have proven to be insufficient in stopping the complete capturing of our country. And it's not just a government corruption issue. It might go even deeper than that. It might go into a lack of political will, political knowledge, and understanding about the true situation. So how do you get around that, right? So anyways, there's so many questions with all this. And so let me just check on the chat. We're just going to kind of roll it all out. I'm going to put it all out there, and let's see where everybody sits. Yeah. So like you got to remember when it comes to Canada, and the reason why this anti-American sentiment is built into the fabric of Canada, which is interesting because when you speak to Americans and you get around a table and a beer, we often agree on a lot of the same things like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, government, leave us the fuck alone, free speech, individual rights, bodily autonomy, free movement, lower taxes. I mean, Trump is literally on deck talking very candidly about abolishing the federal income tax. I mean, that's a pretty hard thing to pass up and just walk through. Like if that actually comes to fruition, like I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm an entrepreneur living in this country and getting absolutely slaughtered by the way the tax system works. Look at our food, everything, the price, the cost of living, housing. Oh my God, it's brutal. Our land is all divvied up. Our resources are sold off. Our country's been sold out in so many different ways. A lot of Canadians forget that in like 1974, under Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and I know this well because I literally spoke to Paul Hellyer privately many times, who was the deputy prime minister under Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And he watched this happen, where they signed away Canada's money system and sovereignty to the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland. And he showed the graphs about how Canada used to have little to no debt, very manageable. We were an extremely wealthy country. I remember Paul Hellyer just sitting me down like in my office, and we were just here talking. He brought up all the spreadsheets. And he's like, this is where we were before 1974. This is where we are now. Do you see any differences? And it's just like big pings of debt. Boom, boom, boom. And then the counter, well, America is under the Federal Reserve System and they're just as corrupt and they have a deep state and la, la, la. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But here's the issue. As I see it, the Canadian Charter of Rights was not designed properly. And it has a lot of holes in it and a lot of gaps, clearly, because the government uses those holes and those gaps all the time to circumvent that deal with Canadians. And so our problem is that we don't have a robust enough constitution, clearly. And there's many problems with the way our voting system is set up, where basically Western Canada gets completely ignored no matter what we do. You could have like 99% of people in Western Canada vote against Ontario and some of the other provinces, and we get washed out by the bigger provinces. Like just the way it's set up, it's not conducive to the values and the principles of what somebody that wants the most amount of freedom, the least amount of government in their lives, and the most amount of abundance available to them and their children. It's just not the framework itself. And I'm talking even though old Canada isn't set up to be the best version of that. Whereas the issue with America is simply that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were never enforced. It was robust. There were maybe some technical errors in the beginning. There's the whole story of the 1871 Banking Act and some of the things that were brought in to dismantle the original concept of the Constitution. But that's the difference. And so if you have a president coming in who's very obviously trying to go back to those founding principles and move away from these corruptive elements and get rid of the incompetent political lifelong politicians that should, they should only be on 4-year terms, right? Some of these people, uh, then you got to go, well, which way are we going to go? Are we going to continue sort of business as usual in Canada? Maybe bring in some conservative guy to make a few positive changes, but will he take on the massive holes in our ship that are sinking us? It doesn't seem like he's even looking at some of those, right? And is there enough time? Is there enough willpower? And forget even the political class. I'm back to thinking, what about the public consciousness of Canada as a whole right now? Like a lot of the true red and white patriot Canadians have left the country after what happened with the convoy. The convoy told us a lot. We learned a lot since then. I grew up bleeding red and blood also because I was born and raised here. Canada used to be a totally different place to live in. And I felt like America and Canada shared a lot of similar values anyways. It's just that I feel like in many ways, at least the idea of America was a better framework, but that's always hard to untangle because then people give more modern examples of where America has failed in that regard. You got all these invasions of the Middle East and all the actions of this deep state cabal that has infiltrated America and used it as the tip of the spear to allow them to help use America's power to create this new world order system, one ring to rule them all. And they forget that that's not real America. That's not real Western values. That's not real sovereignty. And you could say a lot about Canada today, but then you can also go back and go, wait a minute, we didn't have the same fight. We didn't have the same tenacity to go after that level of sovereignty. Even in our history, we didn't even want to become a country. Many of the provinces didn't even want to join the Federation and the Union. We had to be like swindled into it. There's writings people have shown me from some of the founders and some of the original settlers and some of the original people involved in that were bringing up great points about the fact that they're like, yeah, we're still subjects to the crown. We're still a state. We're not a sovereign country. These complaints don't just start with me or a few guys that showed up a couple of years ago. It goes all the way back to the founding of the country. So it makes you think, okay, well, let's think about this. We've got this nostalgic idea of what Canada is. And then there's what Canada really is. And we have nostalgic ideas of what Canada was and its founding. And then there's what it really was. And then it's just all about, well, okay, even if there's other points to bring up about our history that you might disagree with me on, where are we at right now and where are we going? And I'm sitting here thinking, well, what are the deals on the table? Who's giving us the best deal when it comes to securing the most amount of freedom, the most amount of prosperity and opportunity for our future generations? Who's giving us the best? What's the best deal right now? What are our options at this point in history? That's how I'm thinking about it. So, couple points. Roof Aurelius is saying, withdraw from the crown, reject American imperialism, join our southern neighbors as a fellow republic. Keenan says, Canada has been sold out long time ago. Does protesting work? I don't think anybody cares. Conservatives are too weak, or they're also sold to China. Yeah, we do have these issues. Those are good points to bring up. I just want to make sure I'm catching everything here. Oh, it's a good chat on Rumble going on right now. This is what I want to do. Just start a conversation. We need to talk about this. We need to stop hiding and being that, oh, I'm so sorry, Canadian vibe. We need to start just having adult conversations about this. So this is what I like to see. You don't have to agree with me. It's not why we're here. You just have to give me your opinion, and I'm collecting data at this point. That's true. A ton of people have left Canada. And you know where they went when they left Canada? Those hardcore people who've been fighting for decades to try to save this country, who've just given up and left. And I remember scolding them for doing it myself. They went to either America or Mexico, which just so happened to be the countries that Trump is talking about creating into states. Someone is saying here, Bobby to Ukraine is saying the new world order theory is a psyop to make us fearful. The world order controlling us is just trying to make us believe change is bad because they are exposed now. Interesting. I think I know what you're talking about there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of people bring up, like if Trump is looking at getting Panama Canal, which I think he's acquired it, isn't it? The American Canal now, I think. He's looking at acquiring Greenland. There's probably some tactical reasons for that. And then he's looking at acquiring Canada. And so people go, oh, in Mexico into some kind of union, you know. And so people go, oh, what about the North American Union and the Amero and all the stuff I was listening to back in like the early mid 2000s. And all I have to say is that was, I remember being there. I remember reporting on that. I remember studying that. I remember all the documentaries about it. There is one theory that even that worry was propaganda to make it look like that was something part of the globalist thing when it really wasn't. Other people say, no, it was, but it was a different framework. I tend to be on that camp where I think that that version of the North American Union was a sort of ploy to create another European Union, which is run by the globalists, right? But the thing is, their framework and what they were proposing wasn't this like sovereign framework for each of those nations involved, where it was based on a constitution and a bill of rights. They were looking to totally create a different kind of union that would have subsumed everybody into the global empire. So you would have been a state in that. So then when Trump is making a move to say, well, no, let's unify against the globalists, and here, watch me just walk into Davos and flip them all off over and over again. That would be a different deal. That'd be a different kind of union, I guess you could say. And the only way I would look at anything like this would be to read the fine print of this deal and ensure that just as it's supposed to be in the United States of America, but has not been, but is moving back there, that's where Trump is trying to take it back there to the original concept, the power should reside with the states to determine their own culture, their own, you have the general constitutional framework that restrains government and gives it only the authority to defend and protect the rights of the citizens and protect the country. And then down the line is the states that get to determine what's best for the local people there. So obviously you go to New York and then you go to Texas, two totally different cultures. If you look at that, right? Totally different mindsets, different kind of voting blocks, different, based on the constitution of the country, but then they also have their own state constitutions. And there's differences in the laws on certain things from those states. And you can go state by state and you can see that it's different in different states. You can have a late term abortion in one state and you've got to really prove your case in another state, or you can't even, right? And these little things that change. So then you start to think, okay, well, if that's the way it's run, then as I was saying, you actually, as a American state, have more power under the protections of the Constitution to operate in a much more sovereign manner than provinces in Canada have when it comes to their relationship with the federal government. And all you need to do is look at the fight Danielle Smith is facing in Alberta and what's going on there to realize the problem in Canada when it comes to way too much authority vested in the federal government. So there's that. Getting rid of some federal government is the first step, right? You got to trim the fat. You got to trim the fat. So, I mean, for me, it's simple. I'm a father. I'm a person I'm an entrepreneur. So I have to, I get a direct one-to-one response from my activities as to whether or not I'm going to get paid, whether or not I'm successful in what I'm doing. If I suck at what I do, I will not get paid. If I'm good at what I do, I will get paid. And then the government, who sucks at what it does, is going to come in and take and fleece my earned value that I earned on the market. And they're going to take 60 to 70% of that value, and they're going to reallocate it as they wish. And now with everything hyperinflated, it's just not worth the cost of living. Like if I was sitting here as, imagine, okay, if you're Canadian, you guys know about Dragon's Den, right? The show Dragon's Den. Let's imagine together, we are the Dragon's Den panel. Us Canadian citizens right now, we are the Dragon's Den panel. And we're sitting there and we've got a bunch of people walking into the room giving us offers to partner with them. And we're investors and we're sitting there going, where are we going to invest our money? And right now it's like, where are we going to invest our vote, and our vote being our dollar, and where we're going to invest our efforts. Okay. So we're sitting there, and so Ottawa strolls into the room, and I'm just going to say Ottawa because how many political parties do we have? And all of them are dysfunctional, corrupt. We have this concern in Canada about all these foreign agents infiltrating us. We've got public statements of people like Klaus Schwab bragging that he's penetrated the cabinets, and he specifically used Trudeau in Canada as an example of that. Okay, so we got all these concerns. They won't tell us who the known foreign agents and traitors are. I wouldn't expect them to. It would blow the whole thing up, I bet you, if we knew the whole thing. And so Ottawa walks into the room and says, all right, Canada, here's the deal we have for you to keep us in charge of your state. You can continue to be a state of the British Crown Corporation. You can join us in the progression towards the global state and the China model that they're all moving towards. Or we have another guy walk in the room, and it's Trump, and he's basically saying, I'll give you 1-to-1 with the American dollar. I mean, I checked yesterday. I bought something yesterday and I paid $25.60 US for it. And I look on my credit card statement and it was over $40 Canadian. Oh, that's like when you're talking like where we're at, and I know the American dollar is also still inflated. Like Trump has a lot of work to do ahead of him. He knows it. So, and then the debt, and they're like, oh, by the way, the Ottawa guys coming up to us, Dragon's Den guys, they're like, we've got debt. This is our package we're going to give to you as our proposal for you to continue doing business with us. We've got an ungodly amount of debt and an annual deficit that'll blow your freaking mind. We've got all kinds of corruption issues and incompetence issues, heavy on the incompetence, trust me. And we're basically just going to plug a couple holes in the ship just to kind of make you guys satiate the mob. We'll do enough to let them eat cake and satiate the mob, but you're still going to be brought into this globalist framework run by the UN and Davos and the clique, and you know the people, right? We don't have to go through all this every time. And then Trump's going, let's tell these guys to fuck off, and why don't we do our own thing and work together, and you'll still have your sovereignty, and here you go, 1-to-1 with the American dollar. We're going to eliminate a massive amount of your taxes, if not your federal income tax altogether. We're going to run a situation off tariffs, which means countries are run like businesses where they're based on merit. So if you want American or Canadian products, you're going to do business with us if you're another country, rather than us just like handing the whole thing away at the expense of the taxpayers. And many, 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 many other things that are all within a week. We're already getting a taste of where this guy's headed. We also forget that in Canada, we pay America to protect our borders. So we also have to consider Trump's argument if he's walking into Dragon's Den and he's speaking over to the other side, to Ottawa, and going, well, let me advocate for why you guys are, you've phased yourselves out. You didn't have to be this way, but here we are. And here's what I can do better for Canada. And he would have to talk about the billions of dollars that he's bringing up that is essentially subsidizing Canada and the American military is the thing that protects Canadian borders because we simply cannot do it on our own because of the state of affairs. No, this doesn't have to be this way, but it is this way. And digging ourselves out of this mess is going to take a long freaking time. And I just don't see the political will there. So, given this current circumstances, make your pick. Do you want to live under a constitution and a Bill of Rights that's finally being put back into place after the destruction that's been done by the deep state there? And yes, it's a deep state. I got in shit for some other Canadian guys like, you're using a lot of American rhetoric. You're using deep state and treason and freedom and all these words. And I'm like, these are just, this is the rhetoric of Western values that America just did a better job at promoting and enshrining, even with its failures. There's a reason there's people from all over the world just piling in there and like risking their lives to get there. And they're not doing that to get into other countries. They're even using Canada as just a portal to get into the US. They're just skipping right through Canada now. They're like, fuck Canada, we're going right to the US. So a lot there, but let me see here. What do you guys got for me? Yeah. Okay. You know what? Let me just bring it up. Let's just go through. Let me do some screen sharing here. Get the audio share on as well. I can do this view. Oh, what if we do it like this? I could bring this over here. Yeah, I think it's better. Okay. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Holy smokes. So yeah, this is going around, man. Okay. Let me see. Holy smokes, it's over 8K already. I've never had a tweet go like this ever. Over 2,000 retweets, 1,000 comments. So there's a massive war happening in this thread if you want to go jump in and have some fun. It's spicy. I got in there a little bit, but holy crap, it is just an absolute WWE Raw is War situation in this comment thread. So here's what I did. And let me just explain my motives. I'm a curious person and I like to just see how people react because I'm trying to make up my mind about this stuff too. Okay. I don't know everything, but I'm curious. I always go, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I want to know and I want to see what would happen. I want to see where people are at. And I'm serious about what I'm saying in here. But there is a bit of a social thing here where I'm looking to see what people say in reaction to this. And that's just a great way to gather some information. So here's what I said. And I don't know, is this, maybe I should have done it like this. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. I'll leave it like that. So let me just read out. I just kind of did like a mock letter to President Trump. I know he'll probably never read this, but just for fun here, I said, "Dear Mr. at Real Donald Trump, I am writing you from the once great state of Canada as a citizen under duress. You are the only person that I believe will actually listen and hear my plea, as our pleas here to our corrupt leadership have fallen on deaf ears for far too long. It has come to my attention that our government, with a circus emoji, here has become infiltrated by what our own intelligence agency has referred to as foreign agents, and some would say traitors. And for some weird reason, us citizens are not permitted by these overlords to see that list of known compromised government officials, thus rendering our good faith in our leaders and our form of government impossible. Our leaders on both sides of the aisle have committed a very long list of egregious crimes against its citizens for quite some time now, similar to, and in some cases far worse than in many other American states, as I know you are all too familiar with. Our economy, our freedom, and our future has been systematically destroyed by these people. I know you witnessed what took place with the Great Canadian Trucker Convoy, which was a moment of great pride for us, but which has led to even more tyranny from government since, not less. We citizens have tried every possible peaceful means of fixing our corruption issue, but to no avail. So I humbly ask that you request, or even demand, that the names of these traitors be released publicly so that the average Canadian citizen can be left in no doubt as to why we should take your deal and become the 51st state and join America in its fight to drain the global swamp and make Earth great again. Much love and respect, a Canadian guy who's had enough." And So then I had some interesting back and forths here, and I don't want to get into it just yet, but you know, what do you guys feel about this? Like, am I off at least on the, and this is only one little issue I decided to point out. Am I off on at least my premise here? That, like, what options do we have? Like, we've tried everything. Like, what do we do? We tried, we mobilized. It's never going to happen again. It's a once in a lifetime event with the convoy. Okay. It was the largest peaceful protest in history. It was the biggest one in Canadian history, that's for sure. It was the first time we saw Canadians really get, like, fighting back spirit, like a spirit of fighting back against what the government was doing at that time. And it was about a heck of a lot more than just the mandates. That was sort of what we galvanized around. And I bet everybody there kind of had their own reasons. But generally, the vibe at that time was that it was just getting too oppressive, too tyrannical. We didn't like the direction of the country in general. And now, even though I think that convoy actually ended up reversing the mandates, um, it's just been nothing but more and more and more and more pressure on Canada with all the money they've been giving away, and just what they've done to our economy, the economic warfare, the psychological warfare, the gaslighting, the bill. You should see the bills and the laws that are being proposed in Parliament by both sides, right? And when you know the globalist setup, when you understand all the stuff I've talked about for years already on this show, it's so easy to see the rhetoric of, like, the Club of Rome, the UN, the George Soros gangs, these kind of, you've seen that rhetoric within these bills, within these politicians. And then watching the country go in that direction. And then you've got someone like Trump, who's literally the only, I mean, what do you got? Milei, a little bit of but, like, Trump is the only one that's really fighting, not just for America, but for the entire West here, the values of the West. And that brings me to the point about values and, like, what makes a country, you know? Wonder if oh no, not that. Um, oh, I can do this. Perfect. It's it's the values and the ideals that create a country. It's something we make up, but we make it up for a reason, right? So if the contract has been broken from the government to the people, and we don't have an anomaly like Trump. Trump is an anomaly. And I don't know if a lot of people can quite grasp that. Whether you love him or hate him, whether he's perfect on every issue, he's an anomaly. He's a wrecking ball. But not a wrecking ball against the people, a wrecking ball against the high table, the mafias, the people that have infiltrated and that are using the government system as a platform to milk the public dry. He's the only one that's bringing attention to it and pushing back against all the right people. I don't see anybody with that level of a backbone in Canada that can do it. Even if you have well-meaning people and they get into, say, the parliament, or they get into prime ministership, I just don't think they can manage the level of swamp creatures that they're surrounded by. Oops, sorry, another American term, swamp creatures. Ooh. I think that we can all use that term. It's a very good term. Doesn't matter what country you live in. We can all sense that there are cultists in our midst that don't work for us and don't represent Canada. See, I think we're already a state. We're not really a serious sovereign nation, and we haven't been for some time. I mentioned just even what happened with 1974, but you can go back even further. And then before I continue here, I'm going to replay a video that I made to remind everybody who we are presently joined and married to. Okay? Who we are presently married into with the British royals and that system. Not to say that's the original British system didn't also contribute greatly to the cause of freedom. It absolutely did. The Magna Carta, the whole thing. But Britain has had its problems, and it's been totally, totally captured as well. both sides of the aisle. Look what's going on in Britain right now. So they got out of the European Union only to have one puppet after another installed to bring them back into line. And I feel like Canada is on deck to become like Britain, and that would be like the first bus stop, and then the second bus stop after that is Venezuela level conditions if we keep going down this track. So I had made a video because I covered this during the pandemic years a couple years ago, and I did a show on the Terra Carta. Anybody read this shit? You got the Magna Carta, which was there promoting individual rights and all that, and freedom from slavery. And then now you got the Terra Carta, which are rights for nature that exceed the rights of man. And this is all headed up by King Charles, who's the head, at least on the surface. He's not the head. He's just the public affairs guy put out in front by the real cults that run the British Empire, not to be confused with the British people and the ideals of freedom and all of that, but like the cabal that crept in a long frickin' time ago to the Templars and everything else that basically took Britain as well and used it as another bastion for their enterprise, as they did America. And now we've got this King Charles still representing that old royal dynasty. And look at what he's involved in. Look what he's saying. Look where he's going. And Canada is a British colony. We are a British state. We have a governor general for a reason that represents the crown, right? All of your MPs and RCMP officers and government workers swear an allegiance to the crown, to these guys. So you're already a state, Canada. That's not even talking about China and the technocrats, okay? We're not even there yet. This is just kind of going over some old ground, but it's necessary. So check out this clip, and we'll come back.
I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on.
Consensus and intention, goals and targets are only the first steps.
But that train keeps rolling. All down to San Antonio. All down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns.
The only possible solution to the challenges facing our planet lies in working in harmony with nature's own economy rather than against it.
I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when.
I am launching the Terra Carta as the basis of a recovery plan for nature, people, and planet.
I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps rolling. All down to San Antonio. All down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns.
Well, there you go. Oh, damn, that song gets me goosebumps every time. And the footage of those beautiful truckers, holy smokes. This is such a hard conversation for me because, I got to sit here and take all the shite from a bunch of people who have no freaking clue, calling me traitor and all this stuff. And I don't care what people think, but you have no idea. And let's just put it at that, where I sit, who I am, and what I think. I do my best to tell you, but I am here for the values. I am here for the land. I'm here for the people. I'm here for my children. I'm here for freedom and prosperity. Are you not on that side? That's the side. This is a different age. This is a different era. This ain't the 70s, the 60s, the 80s. The world has shifted. I don't know if anybody knows that the world kind of ended already. The world you knew, the world your parents and grandparents grew up in, with the promises they were given, the framework they were given. 2012 and beyond, 2020, it's been exponentially changing. We were in a totally different timeline. And it's taken us this long to start to switch that timeline. And the switch is happening because of consciousness, because of conscious awareness, the changing of human consciousness all over the world, not just about Canada and America. You can sit there stuck in the political rhetoric all day, but you're going to get stuck with this one problem. You can erect all the systems you want. You can say this system works better than that system. If this piece of paper were only written the right way, then we would. In the end, this is about human nature, human consciousness, the human being. Where are we at psychologically, spiritually? We bring meaning to the world from the inside out. We create things from the inside out. We come up with ideas. We say, hey, we want to unify with people to build something that is going to be worth living in, that is not going to be slavery, that is not going to be tyranny, that is going to be based on freedom for you as an individual to think your own thoughts, to speak your mind. Because remember, free speech as one of the first pillars, there's a reason why. And even though America enshrined that value the best, that is one of the founding principles of our entire civilization. Doesn't mean it was always practiced. Doesn't mean every government in the West upheld it and fought for it. We did to certain degrees only. But then we were slowly infiltrated over time by these Marxist fascist forces and these gangs and these cults and these people that have their own agendas and their own way of seeing the world, and they don't want freedom. They don't like it. They despise it. The reason why isn't just because they're a bunch of secret handshaking assholes that join a bunch of nightclubs. The reason is based on every single individual involved in this globalist scam and their psychological state, and why they are motivated, and the people that cheer for them are motivated to end the project of freedom. And it has to do with their values, their psychological makeup, the way they see themselves. The way you see yourself is the way you see the world. There's a reason they sell their soul to the devil, so to speak. It's because they don't think that soul has value. So if you're going to have freedom, you have to have it based on what values are going to promote that. And yes, you can enshrine the values in a constitution. You can have leaders that better embody those things. But if the people who are a part of these, what we call countries, don't actually fight to uphold them and practice them and teach them to their children and bake that in, and instead allows the enemy ideology, as Yuri Bezmenov put it, to slowly and insidiously work its way into the minds of the young, you will lose your country. You will lose your freedom. We've been warned endlessly. Solzhenitsyn, on we could go, warned endlessly about this. America's been warned about this. And where are we seeing the fight being taken to these people? Is it really happening in Canada now? Most of the patriots I know left. So it's sad. It breaks my freaking heart to have to even think about this, because I feel the nostalgia. But then I smack myself and have a cold shower and go, wait a minute. What we have right now is not in line with those values. It's not. America doesn't own those values. Canada doesn't own those values. These are values that were tried even in other points in history. It just never came to fruition. America was an anomaly. And then it immediately got infiltrated. We've covered this right from 1776. It was already being infiltrated by the British intelligence and the secret nightclub groups and roundtables and secret societies, because there were powers that be in the world that realized that if you allow a country like America or Germany or Russia, because there's a whole history to go into why they turned into what they turned into, other countries, even speaking about what went down in Iran, where it was trying to move forward, and then they take out the Shah and install the Islamic Brotherhood, and look what's happened, right? Good ideas versus bad ideas. So I'm just trying to think about this and say, look, this isn't about traitors and everything to some flag that is just a symbol of something that was like, I remember when we were trying to fly the flag, nobody flew the flag and wore the flag more than I did during that pandemic or that convoy in my neighborhood. I got pulled over by the cops when I was flying 2 big Canadian flags out of the back of my truck on my way down to the legislation to go and drink some apple cider with friends of mine and protest what the government was doing and give people hugs and have people spit at me for fighting for freedom in that regard. I remember that. I had to explain to the police that I was not a Nazi terrorist and that I was simply flying the colors of my country, and they were still staring down their nose at me as if I was breaking some law. And then I watched them literally trample it in the streets when they went in and Gestapo'd a bunch of peaceful Canadians that had had enough of the government bullshit. And then I watched the rest of Canada, to this day, spit on those patriots, spit on those Canadians, which tells me I'm not just dealing. This is the hardest thing for me to say. I'm not just dealing with some government corruption, am I? That's not the only problem that I'm dealing with in my country. I'm dealing with a brainwashed, coddled, weak-minded population. And of course, I'm not speaking about everybody. I know and meet and talk to the people that are definitely not that. And they agree with me. Maybe they don't even agree with me on the annexing of Canada, but they agree with me on the values. They agree with me about the problems. They agree with me that something must be done, and it better be done freaking yesterday because time is ticking. So for me to get here, where I'm seriously considering this as like, holy shit, this might be the best offer we're going to get right now, is hard. Because it's an admission of sort of defeat. And so people go, Dave, why don't you fight back? Where's that warrior spirit? You're just quitting. I get a lot. You're quitting and running. You're quitting and running. I ain't running nothing. I just know when to stop beating a dead horse. Now, prove me wrong. Please give me a better deal. That's all I'm asking for. Let's go to that section. Give me we're in the Dragon's Den. You got deals on the table. What are we going to do? What's the best deal? What's your solution? Right now, we have less than a year. Go. What are we going to do? Less than a year. Less than a year. I'm putting that as a time because maybe it's a little more. I'm just saying time's ticking when it comes to where our economy's at, where our government's at. They're about to install. I don't know if anybody's kind of catching up. They're calling me a traitor. They're calling me un-Canadian. You're about to have Mark Carney installed as the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. You're either going to get him or Chrystia Freeland. I don't think has a chance in hell. They've even revoked. They had some Indian guy who a bunch of Canadians went and voted for just to try to get him as the leader of the Liberals. And this guy was literally more conservative than liberal in his policies, by the way. I can't remember, Chandra or something. There was a whole campaign. The minute people started voting for him and he started actually doing well, he got booted out of the Liberal Party. They just went, no, we're not. The Party of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion just booted the only Indian guy they've got. And guess who they're going to replace him with? The whitest motherfucker that exists. He's European. He doesn't even live in Canada. He's a banker. He's like a Bilderberg Davos guy. He lives outside of Canada. He's not going to be elected by the people. We are not being consulted on this, as we have not been consulted on where our money is supposed to be going with this ridiculous taxing, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not consulting us. We're not in a country. This is not our parliament is closed right now. Do you know our parliament is closed right now? Did you know that? They're not even debating this right now. Where's the debates? Pull it up. Where's the debates? Are they still closed? I don't know. It's just, it's to me, it's a freaking circus, and it's been like this for so long, and so many Canadians feel like this. I think it's a lot more than we know, because just like with the convoy, we didn't know it was going to be 11 million Canadians all across the country fighting back. We thought it was going to be like, maybe we'll get like a couple 100,000 people. So, and since then, do you think more people haven't woken up? Especially after the toll of the jabs that the whole thing was about? So, come on, give me a solution that can work when in less than a year we're imploding. We're going to be sold. We're going to be a part of one empire or another when it all shakes down. We're either going to be part of China and the globalists, or we're going to be a part of the American empire. Canada alone at this point, whether we save it, whether we repair it or not, is just not capable of standing on its own in this particular climate. That's just that's what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and you can tell me why. Like, do you have an amazing plan to suddenly give us a military that can defend our borders without having to rely on the US? And what if the US goes crazy and we have to defend ourselves against the US in a sort of Canadian bacon fashion? Could we do it? Could we even survive without trade with we're all talking about it. Oh, the tariffs are going to destroy Canada. Yeah. Why? Because we can't produce anything of our own. We've got our own oil supply. We've got our own water. And so the world is taking it from us. But is there any movement to try to repair that you see coming down the pipe within the next year or two? So that's where I'm sitting. I'm here for the prosperity of my children's future at this point. I don't give a shit about politics, where everybody believes and where everybody thinks. I'm in my 40s now, guys. I have less fucks to give about that. I'm the most optimistic person you're going to meet. I'm definitely glasses half full. You know this from watching my shows, okay? I'm one of the only guys out here that isn't trying to black pill the shit out of you every day, like everybody else. But, I mean, enough's enough. So that's where I'm at. I'm shopping right now for a way of life, and I'm not interested in just relocating my family, okay? A lot of people just go, well, just move to the US. I actually don't want to move anywhere. You know why? Let me tell you why. There's one thing I love about Canada is the uniqueness of the land here. It is a unique gem of beauty, this place. I'm connected to the land and many of the people. These are my lifelong friends here. I've built a very beautiful home for my family in a very beautiful community. And I kind of feel a little bit like I'm not the one that needs to move right now. I'm not the one that needs to up and go right now. I wasn't the one that caused the infractions. It was the people in the government that did. I'm just looking for some justice. Even when I was doing that tweet to President Trump, I was just I'm talking about some specific things that I think he could help us with, whether we're annexed or not. If we're going to be releasing all these lists, and boy, let me tell you, if they actually give us these Diddy, Epstein, Ghislaine lists, and they start talking to Edward Snowden and getting that shit out and all the other things, I think we're not even going to need the traitors list in Ottawa to know what's really going on here, okay? But if we're in a declassifying mood, the way Kash Patel is saying he's going to turn the FBI into a museum and have a 24/7 declassification division, if anything's true with that, just wait till you find out, yeah, Canada and the US have a real tight relationship. And that deep state that is currently being exposed in America worked hand in glove with the deep state in Canada. It's the same people, really. It's the same club. And I'll bet you if you're in Australia or anywhere else, you're going to dig. It's the same thing. So we are kind of all in this fight together, because if we don't fight these people, we are going to be in the thing that everybody's afraid of, which is this one world system that will end up being a tyrannical system. So I got to read your comments. I keep ranting. Let me go up. What do we got? The best is yet to come says, well, with your ties or chains to Britain or the Queen King, to mean the royals in Europe, it makes more sense as far as national security to become a part of the US. You said that right. You are not sovereign now. Yeah. Like, how is it that more Americans know that Canada isn't really a real sovereign country than Canadians? I mean, in general, obviously. Like I said, I've grown up talking to the people that gave me all the sauce on the true founding of this country. And they were practically suicidal, very resentful, and extremely black-pilled in their old age because they fought that fight for decades and went literally nowhere. There's zero political will in this country for that. People don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. My wife doesn't want to hear it, but she will. She understands. But she's like, deep down, I wish I didn't have to hear this. I'm like, I know. No one wants to hear bad news. But truth wins, baby. Someone said, the Terra Carta is great if you want to be in the one world government. Thank you for clarifying. Let me get some other ones in here. Marlies is saying all the same dirty players. That's right. Light versus dark. Clojo. The Spirit of Truth says, blessings to you. Oh, this is nice. I like reading positive ones. Blessing to you and all. May the light of God's Holy Spirit be in and with you all, for you are God's chosen. God has his temple in the heart of every man, woman, and child to love one another. Thank you for that. I hear you. Like, we are humans living on a planet, okay, or living on this earth, and we have to figure out a way to get along, get things done, and set up a framework that's actually going to be in line with human nature. Because if you go against that, the way the communists want to, it causes the whole, we have to reprogram you and turn you into robots ideology. So it's got to work with human nature. It's got to work towards human freedom, because freedom, I believe, and the best philosophers will tell you, freedom is the ground of your being. But the definition of freedom as enshrined in the American system and once upon a time in Canada is not the freedom of Trudeau, what he says when he says freedom. When they say freedom, they're speaking a different language to you. They're talking freedom from responsibility, freedom from the facts of reality, freedom, you know what I mean? That's a different freedom. The freedom we're talking about here is the freedom where I can never infringe upon your freedom with my freedom. That's different. Also, the concept of merit is not owned by any country. It's a principle. It's a principle that you either agree with or you don't. Do you agree in merit-based outcomes? Do you agree with that? Or do you agree that we should be the levelers and go out and level the playing field in every aspect of society, which is physically impossible? And in doing that, end up destroying that society. So I'm for merit. And when you're talking about a businessman like Trump, he's for merit. He's worked his whole life in that world. That's what he's trying to build in the government. The government politicians in the US and Canada were not people that came from the free market and actually had to be punished for their mistakes. These people were promoted for their mistakes. They're incompetent. They couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone a government. So you're getting a competent person in that has only one goal. Make this business successful. Make this enterprise successful. I don't see that drive in our political class here. I see more of a socialist mindset, more of a monarchical mindset, more of a totalist mindset on all camps, including much of the population. I see more of that. Am I supposed to stand and fight for that? Maybe you can be the Prime Minister of Canada. Oh, please. You're too kind. I am not interested in politics in any way. I have other work to do, my friend. Buckminster Fuller, thank you, Clojo. You never change things by fighting existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Now, we got to do that in Canada in a certain time frame, and I'm just not sold. I'm just not sold. Well, let me just quickly zip back in here, see how my comments are doing in Twitter. Sorry, X. Keep fucking that up. I had a few good ones here. America has your 6. Hey, thanks, guys. I just want to quickly give a few examples. Oh, I did a video, by the way. Oh, it's doing pretty good. Oh, that's the different one. Where's the original? Oh, we'll get to Melanie Jolie in a second. Yeah, there we go. Oh, wow, over 2. This is going around too. So I did a little 20-minute video, guys, if you want to check it out. It's just on X. A little drive with Dave. I just kind of was off the cuff yesterday trying to summarize my ideas, and I guess it resonated and also pissed a lot of people off. Here, let's hear what Trump just recently said here.
America is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Sorry, I was muted there. I mean, have you ever seen a president mention 1913? I'm grateful just for that. Go dig that shit up. Like, go look into what he's talking about. I had never even heard of a President McKinley. I don't know about a President McKinley. Did you? I didn't know about this. What are you going to do? You're going to put a tax on the people doing business with you, as you would in any normal business, to say, hey, we're going to charge you for our services. There's a boost in it because this is how that deal works. We trade, we get win-wins, everybody wins, and we do deals. We do deals. That way we're not taken advantage of, and there's contracts, and there's all these things involved to protect both partners in the deal. You do them one-to-one. You don't need to elect a UN globalist roundtable with all these NAFTA, GATT bullshit trade deals that don't really benefit anybody and only get into the coffers of these people. Like, so you're switching it up. And then what does that mean? He's literally openly discussing the idea of abolishing the federal income tax. Have you ever even seen this as something on the table of discussion? And can you tell me that, like, if let's just say, okay, whether in America there's a massive reduction in the amount of taxes you have to pay, or whether you completely abolish the federal income tax, which was supposed to happen anyways, because that was just supposed to be brought in to help pay off the wars. So hopefully, have we paid off World War II yet? I mean, for crying out loud. What would you replace that with to fund your government and your nation? Well, first of all, does your government have to be this gigantic, big, fat octopus that has its fingers in every single pie, like the mafia? Is that the vision of government? Or do you want to have a smaller government that also is more local to you? This is another point people don't think about, because there's a lot of people that are like advocating for the global world government run by the UN and the Davos clique. They're like on that side, like it. And I remember I'm old enough to remember when I used to get called all kinds of shit for even saying that the goal of this agenda was to create a one world government ruled by an unelected bureaucracy of very insidious, greedy people. And I was told, that's never going to happen, Dave. Yeah, it's just a conspiracy theory. I'm old enough to remember when that was the response. Now it's shifted, guys. Now it's, oh, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Actually, you're wrong in thinking that it is not a good idea to put the globalist roundtables in power of the world and eliminate the American and Western system completely and replace it with the China model that's been perfected for a long time by these sharks, going back to Brzezinski and Kissinger and gang that helped bring that in under the CCP. So what way, Western man, what way are we going to go? Lower taxes, better economy, amazing defense system against all these threats, the end to mass immigration that is destroying our country and even destroying the lives of those immigrants, by the way. They should be working to make their countries great again too. Which way are we going to go? What else? Oh, yeah, I wanted to cover... I was proud of this one. Someone came on and went, "Hey, trader, do you need help packing?" I'm like, "You talking to me or Trudeau?" And I wanted to say thank you to everybody for the ratio on that one. That was pretty epic. There was a bunch of good ones, actually. I just asked Grok to generate an image of President Trump hugging the Canadian flag. I did a bunch of them, and there's some pretty funny ones. And I just here's where I'm at. I'm like posing this to the political classes here in Canada. And I'm like, this is where you're at, okay? What you gonna do for us, Ottawa? You better put a damn good offer on the table to Canadians ASAP, gents. I seriously want to know if any one of you can match Donald Trump's offer. Can you even come close? Canadians want to know. So there it is. We can have all the freaking bickering of all little, it doesn't matter. Give me a deal, put it on my desk, and let's review it and see which one is more beneficial to the average person in this country. That's all this is about. Because you're already a part of something. Like, it's someone even said another good one to the people that, like, I think there's like 100 comments of people going, well, what if Kamala gets back in? What if you go and then in 4 years Trump is out and then the deep state gets put back in? And this constant concern. And hey, it's a good question. But my response is, well, at least we can fight that alongside people that actually fight back, number one. And number two, Trump has put a lineage of people in place. You think he didn't think this through? This is why this has taken so long. He's putting a lineage of people to follow him. And he's also woke up the hornet's nest, okay? And you don't really close that Pandora's box. So once America gets even a taste of the possibility of these types of things happening for the first time in maybe ever in their lives, do you think they're going to accept going backwards steps after this? Especially if this is the pace we're going to be keeping throughout the next 4 years? What is it? RFK is getting, isn't he have his thing? Isn't RFK doing his hearing, confirmation hearing today? We got Tulsi Gabbard coming in. What's up with Ron Paul? He's come part of the Doge thing. Like, that's still being put in place. There's so many things that we're not even there yet that are projected to be just bombshells. And I'm sorry, but I'm jealous. Like, I gotta say it. I'm sitting here in Canada and I'm like, oh, we got Pierre, who's kind of like maybe going to adjust some of the taxes and maybe fix a couple little things. It's just not looking as good as this guy coming in, kicking the door in like Chuck Norris and going, I kick ass and chew bubble gum and I'm all out of bubble gum, motherfuckers. Like, what? How do you not? And then to the people that are like, well, he's part of the globalist reptilian overlords. Well, if that's the case, we got to pick which reptilian overlords we're going for, because I don't think we have a lot of options right here. Because the only other option is for everybody to just become what? Sovereign citizens, anarchists, and then go live like the Amish in the woods and start these little communes that implode faster than they're set up time and time again, sadly. And then leaving a bunch of lone wolves to deal with the threats of countries and cultures that are not lone wolves like that would come in and just annihilate you easily. So there's that, like what are the solutions? What are you going to do? And I also think there's a lot of evidence and real good arguments to say that Trump is not part of that. I think he's working actively against it. And I think that's why we've seen all the lawfare and all the smears. And I'm not going to rehash all these arguments. You're going to just sit where you are. And I've realized you can't change people's minds on this one anyways. So I'm not going to bother. But my personal place of where I'm at after watching this happen is that Trump is not part of that club. It's possible he was at one time, but not now. And so, yeah, that's where I sit. And I mean, come on, what are we? We're juggling this versus what are the other options? They're not looking too good. So there's that. Okay. This is just a few. I won't go through the whole post, but this guy, I just saw him, Julius Rochelle. Sorry if I mispronounced that. He just went, other than Canada, no other country in the world, no matter how broken, will ever get the offer to join the world's only superpower as equals with the same rights as every American after destroying their own country. A rant. Canada democracy is basically a system by which those who benefit from the rotten system can hold everyone else hostage to it. This is the biggest issue, okay? And everybody living in Canada just went, hell yeah, okay? The people I know anyways. And it shows. We recently learned that the average Canadian now has a lower income than the poorest state in the United States. Every effort to hold our government to account, to demand reforms, to protest violations of our rights, and to have a voice in the decision-making that affects our local communities is systematically outmaneuvered by those in charge. No matter how outrageous things get, the response is always the same. The government has investigated itself and found itself not guilty. That's it, man. One law for me and not for thee, or whatever, right? If reform is nothing but a pipe dream to keep the masses docile so the plunder can continue, then let's just end the charade, join with the US, and give each province the full rights of US statehood so we can go back to living our lives, except with the benefit of lower taxes, greater local autonomy, proper political representation, and properly defined constitutional rights with which to defend ourselves against tyranny. This guy's very eloquent. My loyalty is to my, I think he's just taking on an argument. My loyalty is to my community. Oh no, sorry. My loyalty is to my community, not to a flag that represents the interests of the plundering class in Ottawa as they destroy my local community with their ideology and their plunder. 3 years ago, the same gang of people currently waving the flag in our faces was arresting people on the streets of Canadian cities for the sin of waving the Canadian flag. This might be one of the greatest parts. I'm doing it again because I botched it. This is so good. Think about this, guys. I'm talking specifically to my fellow Canadians right now. 3 years ago, not that long ago, the same gang of people, the same type of people currently waving the flag in our faces. They've just recently found some kind of patriotism. We're promoting the arresting of people in the streets of Canadian cities for the sin of waving the Canadian flag. And I would add fighting against laws that were put in place and policies that were put in place that directly violated the Charter of Rights, and also multiple international laws I also could add. Okay. And so now these people are suddenly patriots. But when you listen to their arguments, they're not defending any sort of like free Canada. They're defending the socialist, monarchical, globalist, carbon taxes, climate change, pronouns, send all our money to Ukraine type ideology. And now these are the people that are advocating for Trudeau, who openly advocates for a post-national state. the contradictions are just too obvious. This guy continues, good, decent, peaceful, hardworking citizens who stood up with the Canadian flag in a patriotic attempt to hold our government to account, to demand that our leaders respect the values and principles upon which our country was supposedly founded, were demonized as a threat to democracy, herded together like cattle, trampled by horses, and arrested. And guys, there's still people rotting in jail to this day. Tamara Lich is in court every day of the week. Their lives have been utterly ruined. For doing what? Daring to defy Ottawa. And did Pierre Poilievre go in and save us? I mean, let's also there's so many. The Liberals aren't even a majority government. They're not a majority government. They're a minority government. Trudeau squeaked in. Most of Canada voted against the guy in the last election. It's just because of how fucked up our elections are. They don't even need election fraud in Canada, although we are finding it in BC's election, by the way. They just have to weaponize the stupid system of voting that we have. That's why they piled all the mass immigration into those massive provinces and then give them incentives to vote against Canadian values and for these globalist values that the Canadian government is installing. And yeah, they are. I forget where I was going with that. Hold on. I keep trailing off. Let me read that again. Demonized, herded like cattle, trampled like horses, arrested. I was talking about Tamara Lich. I was talking about what went down. Look what they did to Danny Bulford, friend of mine. These are the Canadian patriots. They fought back. Look what they're doing. And, minority government. That's where I was headed. Minority government. So the minority government has said, okay, we're going to prorogue Parliament right now. Where's the bloody Conservatives? Where's the people fighting back? Where were they during the last 8 years? It wasn't a hard scrap going on, man. It was like, it's a pipe dream. It's an illusion. So this guy continues. I'm just going to read it. It's such a good one. I have not forgotten. It was a betrayal unlike any other, and it will haunt me for the rest of my life. Oh, I feel you, brother. I can never again sing our national anthem, nor will I ever again take off my hat for our Canadian flag. Now that strikes hard for people who would say, well, I'm going to do it in spite of the Canada they've created. But can you blame them for feeling this way? Because the betrayal, once again, was not just from the Canadian government. We all found out that the vast majority of the country is weaponized against us. So what are we doing with this? Over and over again, Team Canada, aka our political classes, has used fear and intimidation to silence unhappy citizens. Not once have they had an honest conversation with any of their own unhappy citizens. A government that hides from its own citizens has no legitimacy to govern. Yet now, quote, Team Canada want us to rally around our flag when our southern neighbors offer us a much better deal, join their union as the 51st state, realistically, 10 plus states, a deal that would uplift our local communities, flood our provinces with new invested money, and bring law, order, and prosperity back to our communities. The U.S. is far from a perfect system, but what it represents is infinitely better than what Canada offers my community today. It's pretty sad that the leader of a foreign country is fighting harder. This is another good point. Is fighting harder to improve the lives of Canadians than our own leaders. He has no authority to force us to reform our political system, but he can offer us a better deal than we have now by letting us join his. If Ottawa doesn't meet or beat Trump's offer with a plan to fix this country now, Team Canada can stuff their fraudulent flag where the sun doesn't shine, and we should seize the lifeline being offered to us by our southern neighbor. No other country in the world, no matter how broken, will ever get the offer to join the world's only superpower as equals with the same rights as every American after destroying their own country. Canada is literally being offered a get-out-of-jail-free card by the world's only superpower. The rest of the world is littered with failed and failing countries that will never get this second chance and will likely wallow in misery for generations as punishment for embracing stupid ideologies and letting corruption run rampant. What Trump is offering is uniquely only available to Canada because of our shared culture, our intertwined history, our intertwined economies, and our geographic proximity. Not even Mexico can expect to be offered this lifeline because of the difficulties of merging such vastly different cultures. I pray Canada does not look this gift horse in the mouth and squander a once in a generation opportunity because it is seduced by the flag waving of our feudal masters who have nothing else to offer except the status quo. I mean, that's going to piss a lot of people off, but damn, where's the lie? Another one here. This is from Blue Collar Kel, Overall Folks Kel. A question for all the diehard Canadians that refuse to consider separation or the annexation of Canada. Why? What on earth is telling you that Canada can be a united country under the Eastern thumb and the rule of a destructive liberal policy? The East will continue to implement government that will suffocate and harm the West and ultimately all Canadians. Why do you want us to remain a, quote, nation when we are clearly a fractured nation at odds and under duress? Just echoing more of the points. I'm just giving you, this is the sentiment here, man, with a lot of people. I asked this person a question here. They said, sounds like you should really move. This is the number one thing, but just move, just move, just move. Sounds like you should really move. We only need real and true Canadians in our country. So I'm saying, well, please define for all of us what a real and true Canadian is in our post-national state condition, which is now owned by foreign nations and megacorporations, run by maniacs, and presently drowning in a gargantuan amount of inescapable debt. Here's the mic, bro. Also, why would I move when basically America is being Ubered right to my front door as we speak? You know what I'm saying? Oh, this is the Melanie Jolie. She's one. So the Cat Canada is saying some Americans have dubbed Melanie Jolie as the Canadian Kamala, and for more reasons than just one. I think that's an appropriate characterization. Anybody living here will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, someone here. Yeah, so we can keep paying high taxes and continue being a Commonwealth country and pledge an allegiance to the fucking royal family. Hard pass. Here's another one from a military veteran. This may be unpopular. I'm not engaging trolls, but real comments I'll harvest. Continue. I love my family. I love my friends. I love where I live. I fucking hate my government. A piece of cloth means nothing to me. How can I say that as a combat veteran? I can say it because I fought shoulder to shoulder with Americans. That an American helicopter picked me up overseas when an LZ was too hot for Canadian pilots. I say it because I have family and friends in the USA. I say it because I want my kids to grow up free and not pretend free. What is Trump offering? Equality with Americans. To be a part of the USA, not slaves in Canada as we are now. Think, Canada, think. Maybe consider why my flag means so much to you. I saw 9U4, I'm not sure what that means, maple leaf draped over coffins, but those sat directly beside ones with stars and stripes on it. Maybe one country, less coffins? I don't know. I'm just a grunt. Well said. Love to hear what some more military guys have to say. There's a lot of people in agreement. Oh, I should go into the comments of this actual stream. Let me go jump in there. Hey guys, what's up? Hey Tanya, please reach out to a fellow named Norm Traversi. Yes, I know exactly who he is. I've interviewed him before. He has found primary source original documents which place into question whether Canada has been falsely claimed by the Crown. He submitted his findings directly to President Trump just a day or so ago, requesting prompt attention. Yeah, I remember he was trying to get attention on something similar in like 2020, 2021. That's when I interviewed him. 51st state, says Al. Oh, Willie Horan. Yes, in Ireland, the 52. Yeah, because man, how's it going in Ireland these days, you poor buggers? Much love to Ireland. Getting swamped over there as well. Gila POTUS, please take over Canada ASAP. Janet, I totally agree. How can we get the ball rolling? He definitely should. The illusion of Canada, says Laura. Christian, annexation of Canada, Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island into Washington, Yukon, and into, was it the Yukon and New Brunswick? Or no, Newfoundland or something? I don't know. Into Alaska, BC into Montana, northern BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba as 51st state. He's just giving like, here's how we should break it up. Frederick, go, go, go. Fight, fight, fight from Quebec. My family is in Canada ever since before it was official. Wow. This is like old stock Quebec. By the way, just before we might have a problem with the Bloc Québécois and some of the issues in the Quebec leadership, but never forget, we had a massive amount of Quebecers come and support us in the trucker convoy. And we saw for the first time in history, unity and singing and dancing between Albertans and Quebecers. That historically had never happened. There was massive rivalry during that convoy. So I think history sort of changed. We all got to meet each other and realize, hey, we're not so different after all. So there you go, guys. Keep the good comments rolling. Let me go check on my rumbles here. Vancouver is a fentanyl-laced nightmare. I wonder why that might be. We would actually be able to keep our guns with a Second Amendment. Yeah, because that's another big issue about what's been going on in Canada. Trump won't hang us out to dry. We are captured just like the US before Trump. Marlies is saying, what I can tell you up there is that many MAGA folks are very concerned about how Canadians would vote as USA voters, given their track record history and mental state of cowering in fear due to how governed. I sense what you're saying there. And that is a sticking point. That is an issue, right? Let's just say we become the states, and then now all of Canada can vote in the elections in the United States. With that contribution, let's just say the vast majority of the country just gets so sick and tired of living without all the taxes and the regulations and just can't handle the level of like freedom and prosperity that would hopefully ensue. And they decide to start voting against such things to bring back socialism and Marxism and globalism again. How are we going to deal with that? Would Canada be a dead weight as opposed to a benefit? Well, all I can say is Trump doesn't seem to think so. So maybe he believes he can turn minds. He can say, hey, give me a chance to prove myself here. And here's the other thing. Canadians have never lived in a true free republic type setup. We've never really lived in a true free market. We've always been it's a capitalism light with socialism at the core that has just slowly gotten worse. So we don't even know what it's like to live in a truly sovereign situation. So my thinking is, my hope would be, is that if this takes place, that we would get a little test drive of what it's like, and then that would sway a lot of minds that just have all the doubts and stuff going on, and that would change. Because don't forget, America, you still have a massive contingent of people behind your own gates that are against these changes that Trump is bringing in. They're radicalized. So what are you going to do about them? I mean, this is a problem in all countries because, again, wherever humans are, there we are. Like, you're dealing with psychology. You're dealing with, I don't think we can even calculate the toll of the damage done by a multi-generational propaganda campaign that you can go to people like Kent Clisby and Yuri Bezmenov and Gilbert Griffin and many others to talk about the campaign to install the enemy ideology behind the gates and then do the Trojan horse bait and switch and totally get the population weaponized against their own best interests. I mean, we're all facing that. That's a universal problem right now. So that's the best I could say to that. But I hear you. We got a crap load of woke here, let me say. But you got it there in the States too. So, and I definitely have it all over Europe. It's like It's like a parasite that we're gonna have to deal with as a species at this point. This is like species-wide contagion that we have to deal with. Trump already tried to put the word out to Wayne Gretzky to run Canada. Can we get 99? Like, oh my God. Like, at this point, I'm ready to take someone's pet dog as the leader. Like, something has to change. So if they want to put Wayne in there, he doesn't seem to want to do it. Yeah, if they're winning with tariffs, it may change their mind. Yeah, it's funny how money talks. Everybody gets talking all tough with their political values until it starts hitting their wallet, and then they're like, suddenly, it's like the old Hayek quote. And he's like, if socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. So maybe we just need to have a crash course in us properly understanding economics. And maybe that would help turn the tide of the public mind. I'm in North. This is Mighty Mouse 327. I'm in Northeast BC and don't see any radical lefties here. Yeah, well, it's funny how in BC, because I live in BC. I'm on the island. I'm in a small little town close to Victoria. Victoria is like the main city on the island here. And when you go out rural, what I've noticed, and I noticed this during the convoy, the rural BCers were at the point of like meeting in secret in taverns and like figuring out what they're going to like. It was during the lockdowns and everything. There was a massive resistance here to that. It was when I went to the legislative building in Victoria, and anybody living here will remember, especially during the big ones, you couldn't, as far as the eye could see, were people waving Canadian flags and supporting that. Trucks everywhere. It was massive. It was like, I remember the feeling of going, oh, okay, Canada's a little more awake than I thought. Like, that's what the convoy did for a lot of us. And then I think it was just a massive kick to the balls when we saw what happened after. And we knew that that was our best shot. And it accomplished a few things, but it didn't quite get us over the line. So what I'm trying to say with that is the more you go into the major cities, that's where you see more woke. The more major city, the more woke. You go into the heart of Victoria, purple hair everywhere, right? And then you go to the big Vancouver, I guarantee it. But if you look at the last election that John Rustad, who was running for the premiership here in BC, that'd be like him running for governor of BC. If you look at how many people switched from voting NDP and Liberal, because they're addicted to NDP, Liberal, and Greens over here, a lot of people switched to Conservative that were never even in their wildest dreams going to vote Conservative. But John Rustad was talking way more sense to them, and they realized, holy smokes, our province is just a shithole. Like it shouldn't be. It's one of the most beautiful, most abundant provinces in Canada. If you've ever been here, it's Pacific Northwest. It's stunning. You're gonna have to pull me like clawing and kicking and screaming to go live somewhere else because I just love the place. Okay, the energy of this place. But there's like BC is also kind of referred to in Canada as like the California of Canada when it comes to, it's mostly liberals here. Like, and not just classical liberals, which I'm cool with, but like the modern day Marxist liberals. They're more like that. But that's a longer story. So it's good to hear that there's way more people that are starting to turn that corner already in BC. And if they're turning it in BC, that's a good sign, because I always felt like this province was one of those like the last province to wake up kind of situations, but maybe I'm wrong. The best is yet to come. As an American, I couldn't quit watching that Canadian trucker convoy. I was so proud of them and rooting for them. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, me too. I get emotional every single time I think about it. That was something that inspired the world, by the way. Don't ever let anybody tell you different. Yeah. Wayne is a cherry picker? No thanks. What does that mean, a cherry picker? What? Speaking of where's Don Cherry? Let's get Don Cherry in there. He's probably a bit old though, eh? Man, even Pierre would be a better governor. If he's a governor, I could tolerate that. But he just won't talk about the Paris Climate Accord, will he? That's a bit of an issue. It's a bit of an issue. Is there a reason? Is he holding out? Does he know more than he's letting on? Is he just another wolf in sheep's clothing? Is he just ignorant? I don't know. I'm just not like, I'm impressed about some things and then like super not impressed. That's my overall feeling about Pierre. And I'm sad to say it. I'm in the same boat with Maxime now. I'm just not seeing I'm not seeing the rise of a Trump-esque figure just suddenly coming out of the woodwork here in enough time. Yeah. Yeah, Marley, that lib label is probably more about the cities in BC. Yeah, totally. Rural BC, some of the best you're going to meet. They're basically Alberta. But also BC does have a unique culture here. So think about it. The provinces in Canada are also like pretty different. You go to the Maritimes, you go to Ottawa, you go to Montreal, you come out to BC, you go to Alberta. Like you're feeling like you're a stranger in different lands if you go across the country. And the country of Canada, we have a very small population considering the massive size of this country. Like there is no reason our people should be starving and having to work 6 jobs just to buy eggs. It shouldn't happen. Okay? Shouldn't happen. Shouldn't need to happen. I'm gonna go back to my ex here. I'm enjoying chatting with you guys. Yeah, like, are we even gonna get a federal election? Like, Trudeau comes out and he resigns, and I do a video saying, the guy's totally finished, in the public mind, and I'm correct about that, I think. But like, he's still out there putting all kinds of things in place to make way for the next. I think they've come up with a plan, and they're gonna play this plan out, and I'm curious where they're gonna go with this. But then you've got all these. The one thing that's really hilarious to me is all these Canadian politicians, including Poilievre and all these people, trying to talk tough. It's really quite entertaining, It'd be like, you're just not in a place to really talk tough. Like you can sit there and maybe go, oh, this is what I would do. I would go sit down with Trump and have this type of meeting and we would do this deal. But like, don't pretend that you have some sort of massive clout here by saying, well, we're just not going to buy Heinz ketchup anymore. We're going to use French's ketchup. Like that doesn't sound like, if you're in a fight, like it doesn't sound threatening to me. Look what, did we learn anything from, what country was it that just said, we're not going to take those illegals that we sent you back? And they're trying to turn the flights away. And then Trump just like gets on the phone. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're totally going to do it now. Like, I feel like Trump, if they gave him too much flack about this, he would just kind of fly in, sit them down at the table and just be like, okay, guys, let's just put some things into perspective here. You don't really have any bargaining chips, and here's why. And so you got to figure this shit out. You got 24 hours and give me something. And what are they going to give him? The same dog shit they've been giving us. And he's just going to go, yeah, that's dog shit. What are you going to do about it? And then the government's going to go, well, we're not going to give you any maple syrup anymore. And America goes, we got trees too. And then they go, well, we're not going to give you any milk anymore. Well, we got a lot of milk. Trump, like, we got a lot of milk. I want to see that. I would do a pay-per-view. I would pay for a pay-per-view of like Trump. Those, I can't remember what YouTube channel does this, but they have like one conservative versus 50 liberals or one atheist versus like 20. They have all these like pitting where like people have a timer and they come up and they just throttle each other. And the one guy stands against all of them. Like Matt Walsh did one and a few other people did one. Imagine they put Trump in that seat and they had like all these parliamentarians and Canadian government officials trying to like go at him with like a buzzer. Here's why your deal sucks. And here's why we can do better. And like, I want to see something like that, like a Mortal Kombat debate forum like maybe Dana White could set up like a little debate octagon for it. And then we could just have like all these debates, like Pierre Poilievre versus Donald Trump, Justin Trudeau versus, like, it could just be like, you can even do tag team matches against them. When one guy's done, he just tags in Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet Singh pulls up, gets destroyed in like 5 seconds, goes out, tags in Chrystia Freeland. She runs away crying. Like it, we got to get creative with this. Like, we need to have a public forum of this debate, and we need it to all the laundry to be aired out. People need to see the two deals going back and forth here. And then like maybe we could expand it to all the other Canadians that are yelling at me in the comments with, we've got a better solution than all of that. We're going to get rid of all of that. We got a better one. So get all the woke right guys in there, get all the constitutional reform guys in there, get all the PPC guys in there, get all the factions and just have it out. Just have it freaking out. And the truth reigns and the best argument wins. Like something like that would be pretty cool. Food fight. Yeah, exactly. Food fight. We could even allow them to throw food at each other. Oh, good idea, Mighty Mouse. I challenge the turd to a power slap debate. You can choose a bonus round if you feel like you didn't quite get your argument through, and you can just settle it over a slap contest. That would sell. A lot of people would watch that. We'll get a lot of eyes on this. Make fist fights great again. Oh my God. Okay. I did have quick things I wanted to show you. I'll get out of X for a second here. Let's replace that with, yeah. Here, let's do this. Move that. Okay. This is from the CBC News in June of 2024. So it's a pretty recent article. And it's just sort of talking a little bit about this issue of people meddling in our politics. And when you've got CBC News reporting this, that's pretty interesting. So they're saying some MPs helping foreign actors like China and India meddle in Canadian politics. And a national security intelligence op report says Trudeau government slow to respond to threat of foreign interference. You remember this whole thing? I think Canadians are having a bit of a memory lapse here. Shocking new report from one of Canada's intelligence watchdogs suggests some parliamentarians are wittingly helping foreign governments like China and India meddle in Canadian politics. The National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, which is made up of MPs and senators from across the political spectrum, was asked last year to investigate allegations of foreign interference in Canadian elections. I think it goes well beyond just some elections, guys. All right. So anyways, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that they're just referencing the report that I was referencing. I just want to show you the sauce in my little driving rant where I was, and Mike posed to President Trump to go, could we just get the list of these traitors? If it's known and it's all redacted, and there's also a shitload of other redacted reports about a lot of other scandals that the Canadian government is not showing Canadian people, that would really help us make our decision here. Why don't we just declassify it? Why don't you walk into Ottawa and say, look, before we even talk about the 51st state, you have to show this classified information that will help Canada make its choice. And Ottawa goes, no, we're never going to do it. And Trump goes, fuck around and find out. And then they have to do it. And then we vote on the 51st state. Let's let the dirty laundry air out about the human trafficking ports in and out of Vancouver port and etc. About all the smuggling in of all the fentanyl that's killing Canadians more now than ever before. I was happy to see John Rustad bringing that up, by the way. Hadn't seen anybody really talking about that. He was just talking about BC, but we know this is a nationwide issue. We know where that fentanyl is coming from. Comes from China. And the weapons running, the human like all that shit. If people could only see. What if we found out that a lot of our politicians here aren't who we thought they were? So we're having a dead debate because we're not even debating all the facts at hand in full context. So why don't we get all that on the table and then we have this debate? And why don't we say, hey, why don't we dig into the founding documents of the country and see if we can find any weird anomalies. Why don't we look at how things have changed? Why don't we analyze, why don't we get a DOG set up for Canada and have a Department of Government Efficiency that has full transparency to the public, and let's audit the Canadian government and the CRA. Could you even imagine that? The Canadian Revenue Agency, the mafia that they are. My wife has to deal with them every single day. And you should see the level of anxiety she has as a result. And we are a very small business family thing. So it'd be nice to turn the tables a little bit. And we're going to find out about the Winnipeg labs, and we're going to find out about a lot of contracts that Trudeau personally has with some very interesting people. We're going to find out when Klaus Schwab came out and said he's penetrated the cabinets. I want to know who all the WEF people are that are still actually bona fidely beholden to the WEF, even if they're publicly denying it. I would like to see all the declassified information about that. Because you see, we can't really talk about preserving a serious country if we are currently not operating as a serious country. And I'm definitely not going to be sitting here defending people that are also involved in probably some darker and more insidious things, as will hopefully be relayed very soon by the declassification of a lot of these Epstein client lists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what if we let all that come out? Maybe this is a timing thing. Maybe we got to wait a little bit and let more than a week go by, give Trump some time to work, let him get his people in. As they expose, like if you get RFK Jr. in there and he starts going after the cult of the medics and big pharma and going down that avenue, and then you get Ron Paul in there and he starts going, hey, let's audit the Federal Reserve and see what's going on. And then we get, like Kash Patel in there going, look at the CIA and the FBI, look what's happened. And that comes up, like, let that roll out. Canada will be implicated in a lot of that shit. I think that's where this is going to go. And I think as time goes, this 51st state concept is going to look a lot more attractive to a lot more people. And it's just going to keep going because Trump historically never says shit like this. And then it fizzles out. It's like it hits a year later. That's one way to look at it. Oh, where's my, oh, there it is. Okay, good. Oh, Kelly's like, how do I share this 1,000 times? Thank you so much. Please share it 1,000 times. And guys, if you want to help me out, please help me by sharing. I'm trying to defeat what I have a theory. Let me know what you think about this, especially if there's anybody else trying to do content creation in Canada. Am I right in suspecting that there is some kind of weird algorithmic Canadian bubble that is just impossible to burst out of? I've got so many friends of mine that did podcasting and content creation, and they did fine work. And they were just they'd get like 5 views. Like it just, no matter how good it was, they just couldn't get off the ground. And they didn't want to pay a bunch of fake bots to promote their accounts. And then they went to the US, became American citizens, and now they're balling. And this happens many, many times. Is it maybe Canada's population is smaller? Is there a lack of interest in Canada? Or is our algorithms being funneled so that only people in Canada are seeing us more? I don't know what it is, but I've been doing this for a long time. I feel like I make pretty decent content when I compare it to the bigger accounts. And it makes me wonder, am I kind of being held back here under the current setup? So either way, if my theory is correct or not, maybe I just suck and I need to up my game, or maybe there is some kind of blockade going on, the Berlin Wall, so to speak, the CRTC or something. But either way, if you could help a brother out, please share, like, give me some comments. It really helps. And if it, yeah, I think that'll be very helpful. Oh, and just so you know, someone had mentioned this. There's another article that came out today from the National Post, and it's trying to reassure Canadians that there is no issue with infiltration. But interesting source for the statement. So This is just National Post reporting. Commissioner Marie-Josée Hogue says nearly half of the 51 recommendations can and should be implemented by the next federal election. Ottawa, the federal government needs to significantly bolster its defenses against the growing threat of foreign interference by China, India, and other hostile actors. So they are admitting that is a threat, that is a problem, okay? But the title of this is No Traitors in Parliament, Foreign Interference Inquiry Finds. So if the average person only scrolls Facebook and reads headlines, they never read the article, they're going to go, oh, see, Dave, you're wrong. There are no traitors. But wait a minute, they're actually saying there is an issue with this. And then let's see where the source of the statement about no traitors actually comes from. In an extensive 7-volume report published Tuesday, Public Inquiry into Foreign Interference Commissioner Marie-Josée Hogue suggested 51 recommendations for the federal government to vastly improve its ability to detect, combat, and prevent foreign interference in Canada. Of that number, she says nearly half can and should be implemented by the next federal election. Should we even have one? That's an extremely tight deadline considering all the opposition parties, blah, blah, blah. Her report says the foreign interference is real. Okay, so her report says the threat of foreign interference is real and increasing in prevalence and sophistication. She also noted that the government's response to the threat has been far from perfect. So you can deduce what you want from that. And then they go, but the greatest threat of all is information manipulation, disinformation by foreign and domestic actors. So she's echoing Klaus Schwab's recent statement there. And do they mean actual disinformation, or do they mean the truth being labeled disinformation? The commissioner also threw cold water on a report by the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that suggested current parliamentarians are knowing or unknowing targets of foreign interference, completely dismissing the idea that any of them are traitors. Well, commissioners in this country don't really have the best track record. And then, oh, here it is. Green Party leader Elizabeth May said Hogue's report confirmed what she has been saying all along. Certainly, there are no currently serving members of parliament who have compromised loyalties or have been in any way traitors, the traitor told the reporters. So, guys, all this boils down to this little article that they're going to try to combat that with boils down to, look, guys, the government investigated itself and has deemed itself innocent of all charges of foreign interference or compromised foreign assets in the government. Ignore your lying eyes. The government commissions have this under wraps. The same government commissions that convicted peaceful protesters and put them to rot in jail and determined it a terrorist act and justified the use of the emergency powers. So trust them at your peril. Yeah. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. It is a private player from Gortz. Yep. Fully aware. Thank you. Go read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin for more information on that. And we know Ron Paul is well aware of that. So, yeah. Traitor. I just show up and I scroll these comments. Traitor. You were a traitor. I'm a traitor, am I? Where were you mofos for the last 6 years? Government betrayed me first. You got to always ask that question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Am I the traitor for pointing out the obvious here? Or have the government of Canada and friends been the ones betraying all of us? How do you want to look at this? Weren't the founding fathers of America branded traitors by the British Crown? Look what they accomplished. You know what? I'm a traitor. I'm a traitor to. I'm not a traitor. I was never in alliance with it, so I guess I'm not a traitor. But I'm against. I tell you what, I'm against. I'm against living under an illusion that's actually working against my best interests and the best interests of the people that I know and love. I'm against playing pretend and standing by while crimes against humanity and tyranny and censorship and suppression is being used all around us. So I'm against that, and I'm basically logical in understanding where we're at in reality today. So if that makes me a traitor to call out the traitors in government who pretty much destroyed my country, and now I'm looking for the best solution that would get us the most amount of freedom and prosperity for everybody involved, I don't really know what to tell you. What else we got here? No way you are a Canadian. No, there's just no way, guys, that I'm a Canadian. I have a Canadian passport. I was born and raised in Canada. I was out there busting and freezing my ass off, doing patriotic duties for this country before this person even decided to start looking at the political situation. And even if we were a state, I could still identify as Canadian. Just as a Texan can identify as a Texan, or a New Yorker can be a New Yorker. I'm a human being, and I prefer the conditions of freedom over slavery. Those are my politics. And if being a Canadian today means I have to go against those values, then maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not a Canadian anymore. Because Canada isn't Canada anymore. So we got to, this is all murky. You don't understand what you're talking about. Oh, I got someone said, thank you, David. There you go. Someone says, I know a good U-Haul place. Appreciate that. I'll pass that message on to Trudeau if you'd like. Because he's the one that's going to have to pack his bags, not me. Sandy Lubrick says, nobody really wants to talk about the math. It's really interesting that all the points never cover where all the taxpayer money went. If you can't account for government spending and your nation is bankrupt, your points are just chatter. Yeah, exactly. Oh, a cartoon is calling me a faggot. Surprise, surprise. That's what you get, guys. You just get ad homs. You don't get arguments. You just don't get arguments. You just get, you're this and you're that and you're the, like, half of these are bots, man. I bet you half of these are bots, not even real people. And if they are real people, their brain has become botified. I'm looking for arguments. I'm looking for solutions. Even the people that had some decent arguments and started some dialogue with me, all I kept saying was, hey, if you've got some magical plan that I'm not hearing, I'm all ears. Like, show up to the power slap debate. Like, let's figure it out. Like, give me a solution that's going to work to our present situation. I'm waiting for it. If I'm talking about becoming a 51st state, it must be pretty bad. No, and this one's like, make this go viral. Must see for every Canadian. Thank you, good sir. Well said, my friend. You completely wrapped up in the most perfect nutshell. I'm totally on board with going 51st, 100%. Lurxes Mendez says, that's it. I'm following you. Hey, cool. Welcome. Yeah. How about you fight for your own country back? That is what we are busy doing, and it's America first. Well, I'd have to go through all the points I've already been through to answer that. We have tried fighting, and we are still fighting. It's not really looking good right now. Yeah. And this is where it is. Like, how can we have a serious conversation about this if everybody's all like hyper emotional and name calling? Like, that's not an environment where we could have a real like nitty gritty, get to the details kind of thing. Everybody speaks in vague generalizations, and then they kind of force you to. That's why I'm not the one. I'm just here, a guy. And I had a lot of comments where people were like, you don't get to tell us what to do. You are not the person to speak for the rest of Canada. Like these big grand accusations from a bunch of Karens. And I'm like, hey, Karen, relax. I never said I was speaking on behalf of you and everybody else. When did I say that? Why is it that if I espouse my opinion and give you my reasons, that suddenly everybody jumps on the conclusion mat and goes, don't you dare speak for me. I'm not here to speak for you. You speak for you in the comments. I'm putting out there an idea and you get to disagree, agree. You can call me a traitor. You can put an intelligent response with a well thought out rebuttal that has facts to back it up. I'm all ears. You can support this is freedom, but this is the problem. I don't think a lot of Canadians even know what that word means. Don't understand it. I even had someone take me to task on the free speech stuff. They're like, Canada doesn't support free speech in the American way. It is beneath us. We protect the feelings of our people. I'm like, fuck. Did you get dropped on your head? Like, what? You don't get it? Speech is an extension of what? Thought. You don't want to preserve free thought? You want your thoughts programmed for you? It's more comforting, I know, because, who wants to actually go through the labor of thinking things through and researching things and having an opinion when everybody's screaming at you? You got to have balls to do that. Who wants that? Who wants to actually be responsible for their own behavior and feelings and responses to things? Like, are we going to coddle everybody and then put a government bureaucracy in place to enforce it? And then what if one day someone's trying to speak the truth about a subject or an issue that you are passionate about, but the suppression censorship machine has already been installed that you cheered on because you wanted to protect your feelings and the truth scared you. And now you're in the shithouse. And now we're the same. And yet you didn't want to fight for it before it got too out of hand. What then? It's unbelievable. And it just proves again and again that either these people are bots or agents or they're brainwashed and they've been turned against the founding principles. And they don't understand the value of freedom and free speech and all of these values that are enshrined in the constitutions, right? So that's what we're up against. But great point to that earlier guy I was reading who was saying, the same people saying all this shit to you that are suddenly patriots and wanting to wave the Canadian flag now that they're being told they might become Americans, they were the ones getting mad at Canadians for waving the Canadian flag and fighting for Canadian sovereignty against the government. And how ironic is that? So you don't really have any legs to stand on. The hypocrisy is just too thick. Oh, here we go from Leonard. Screw you, bud. Trump is a Nazi dictatorship. There's the Nazi wanting to control North and South America, while his buddy Putin wants to control the other parts of Northern Hemisphere. Wake the fuck up, people, before we have two dictators controlling the Northern Hemisphere. Hate to break it to you, Leonard. Nazis don't advocate for free market values, free speech, constitutional protections, a Bill of Rights. And also, you are already being governed by dictators. The reason you're going to say Trump and Putin are dictators, although I'm honestly not a massive Putin fan. I just think Trump has had to make some deals strategically with Russia, and he's a businessman and a diplomat, so he's going to have good relations even with people he doesn't agree with. And maybe there was some enemy of my enemy is my friend in a battle against a greater enemy situation. We can get into that another time. But either way, what we have in Canada is something that you could call tyranny with a smile. And it throws a lot of people off. And that's why they don't suspect it. If they smile a lot and they speak about the underdog a lot and they've got nice haircuts and they wear nice suits like Mark Carney and they're all these shiny, happy looking people. They must be the good guys. Whereas the guys with some testosterone left in their veins, in their bodies, and that actually speak their mind and go in and shake shit up and get things done, but are actually trying to work towards the best interest of the average person, they look like a dictator because I don't like their personality. And that's going to be the framework by which I judge the intricacies of political actions that are taking place. That's what I think is going on there. Yeah. This is my Canadian brother. How much truth can be spoken in one short video? This man just did it. Yup. Thank you. Oh, thank you for that. Ed, I guess I'm a traitor too. It's not patriotic to want to join the US, but it's the best interest of Canadians to do so. We live in a different age. Empires are being formed. We're in a choose your fighter situation. Maxime has good ideas, just somehow can't get to the top. Yeah. Hell yeah. And the USC needs to also liberate Britain from the Starmer fascists. There you go. Andrew Churchill. The convoy was an incredible success, but to see just how free our country is, see the aftermath. Leaders arrested, bank accounts frozen for months afterwards, the blockading of highways and border crossings made illegal, using trucks for future protests forbidden. And he goes on, but I don't see the second tweet. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I just wanted to come and talk about this. As things unfold, I'm going to do more on it. I want to continue to sort of see where the minds are at and get all the facts. And we're also going to see a lot of things happen. It's been a whirlwind of the last couple of weeks, eh? So let's see how things shake down. We'll do this again. And I'm also going to try to do some spaces on X, or at least join some good ones to have more dialogue on this. I just want to say I appreciate everybody jumping in and sharing their comments. Again, if you could help me out by sharing this far and wide. And just want to let you know as well that I've still been working hard on my premium content, and I've got my Substack page running real well. It's going well. You got loads of free stuff over there, but if you want to support me, that's the best way. So I don't have to run ads and all that kind of stuff. I'm just advertising for my own work, which I prefer. And I put a lot of work into these series and these presentations where I'm just compiling all of my research and putting it all in one place. So if there's a way you want to support me other than just sharing this out, that's the one way. You can go and subscribe to my Substack, and I will be spoiling your rotten over there with all kinds of great content and research and different opinions on a lot of subjects that I'm interested in. So you can go check it out. And I just completed a redoing of a series that I did in 2018 called Cults of Death and Power. That one went semi-viral. It did really well. And I'm now redoing it because I just have, I think, a better handle on it, updated research. A lot of the core is still the same, but I feel like I did a better job this time around. So I just completed part 4. So all 4 of those parts are now redone and are better quality, and they're available over at my Substack. You can get it at dwtruthwarrior.substack.com. I do comparative religion and mythology analysis. I do stuff on some of the paranormal subjects. I do stuff on totalism, the subject of totalism, which is just totalitarianism, the way that works, getting into mind control, getting into Cult of the Medics. I do you can still watch my Cult of the Medics series for free. First 10 chapters are there. I know it's been so much going on. I haven't been able to get back into that just yet, but I do have 2 more chapters coming eventually with that one. I had to open up my martial arts business and work my butt off so I didn't get sucked into a bad economic situation. So anyways, all that good stuff and more is available at Substack. And also Michael Tessarian and I are still cracking out some epic research over at unslaved.com. And we've got some exciting announcements with that project coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. And other than that, guys, just stay frosty. Keep plugging away. report what you can, share information, keep researching, keep thinking for yourself. Don't worry about all the bots and the trolls and the haters. We have to do our very best to ensure the future for our children and our grandchildren. And that's what's at stake here. So keep the eye on the prize, stay free. The truth wins. And I'll catch up with you guys again soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Cheers, everybody.